The time has come when we must now learn that we live in a cosmic electronic vacuum tube of invisibility, as mental beings who project actions from that vacuum condition to manifest our creative desires. Look within a television vacuum tube for a moment. All you can see there are flashes of electric light which come and go. They come only because of a mind desire to manifest invisible ideal into visible form. They go when the invisible ideal has been expressed and the desire for further expression ceases for a while. Ask yourself this question: will those light flashes remain in that tube unless forced to remain there by a power outside of themselves? You have but one answer. Those light flashes have been created to manifest mind ideal in action. They have no energy of their own. They will cease when mind ceases to desire manifestation by action. What has happened within that vacuum? Mind thinking has been electrically recorded. That is all that has happened. That is all that creation is. That is all that electricity is, and that is all it does. We will carry the example of the electric tube still further. Consider that tube as a miniature replica of the cosmic vacuum zero of the Creator's mind. Now consider it as your mind. Now follow that up by realizing that there is no light in the tube because you are not recording your thought images in them. That is the only reason. The moment you connect the electric pulsations of your divided thinking into that vacuum, it immediately begins to record your thoughts in light flashes, which come and go as the light flashes of suns and stars of the cosmic vacuum come and go, like flashes of fireflies in the meadow. If you will but think this through in your quiet hours of inner sensory perception, you will then fully comprehend that the light of motion, which matter is, has but one desire: to escape from the bondage of compression, which keeps it forever moving to record ideal instead of resting within ideal. Every particle of matter in the universe, from microscopic particle to giant sun, desires to explode. The only way it can explode is to generate enough heat within it to explode instantly or to decay slowly. The slow process of decay merely means that the whole mass cannot generate enough heat to explode the whole mass. But each particle can generate enough heat, according to the melting points of each, to explode it all part by part over a period of time. The only way that matter can generate enough heat to die slowly or quickly is through the speed of compression. If you drive an airplane at 200 miles per hour, it will not generate enough heat to die quickly. But if you could drive it at 4,500 miles per hour, it would disappear in white-hot flame in 7 seconds. This fact was recently demonstrated in a wind tunnel experiment at Langley Field, Virginia. The effect and an electric short circuit are identical, except for the 7 seconds time element. The only thing which prevents the continual multiplication of heat is the uncreated eternal cold of the omnipresent vacuum, which not only surrounds it, but interpenetrates its every part. Let me read that again. The only thing which prevents the continual multiplication of heat is the uncreated eternal cold of the omnipresent vacuum, which not only surrounds it, but interpenetrates its every part. Cold freezes matter in space to keep it from exploding, just as cold freezes matter in your deep freeze. Cold even freezes the flame particles of suns to imprison them within themselves. Every particle of matter in the universe retains its appearance as a gas, liquid, or solid, only because it is frozen into the ice of itself. A vast mass of the vacuum cold freezes our sun into its density, and keeps it from exploding. Some suns generate heat beyond their melting points and explode as novas, but some of them are conquered by cold before they expand beyond the limits of their exhaustion. They are then subdued for a while, until they generate enough heat to try it again. This happens many times to many stars before they become permanently subdued. Many, however, explode and disappear. Compression alone creates density, but compression also creates the heat of resistance to tensions. Vacuous cold takes that heat away, however, and leaves only the ice of that heat to simulate substance. Iron, for example, is so closely compressed that it can generate 1,500 degrees of heat resistance to that compression before the eternal cold subdues it. It desires to explode, however, and will do so if you help it by supplying 1,800 degrees from an acetylene torch. Everything on this planet will explode if it can generate enough heat to do so. It has always been trying to do this through the internal fires of compressive resistance, which sometimes reach the surface of the earth through volcanoes. The earth has reached so far away into cold space from its sun that cold has quite completely conquered it. But man is now attempting to create conditions which might make it possible to explode. A full realization of the fact that matter is not held together by nuclear attractive action from within, and the knowledge that our earth is held together only by freeing a crust of stone around its eternal heat, should deter humans from helping the earth to explode as a whole, as it is continually exploding in every little part of it, which we call growth. We mean by that when a small particle generates enough heat from the sun's rays to explode, the cold of its environment freezes it and causes it to refold into a cell of polarized matter. Gradually those cells take on patterns. Tens of thousands of forms of animal and vegetable life then appear. That is the way things grow, and the only way they die is that they are enabled to generate more heat than their normal needs. Living bodies were produced by compression. Dying bodies are liberated by expansion. We shall now build up the nature of the electric current to make its multiplying and dividing two-way principle more clearly understood. The very first principle to make clear is that electricity cannot run in a straight line. It always spirals around a hole in one direction to create its two-way effect. An electric current on a straight wire does not run through the wire in a straight line. It spirals around on its surface. There is always a hole in the center of the wire. A current strong enough to fill the whole wire would melt it. A still stronger current would vaporize it into gases. Consider the electric current as expressed by the wave as shown in Figure 45. In that case, the wave spirals around its axis of gravity like a cone. You can demonstrate our meaning by taking a clock spring of closely twisted wire and pulling it apart. You will see it coiling around its axis of gravity like a spirally whirling cone. That is electricity at work, which you see spirally whirling around its centering hole. Now consider the wave shaft itself. Motion whirls around that centering hole in 4 pairs of cones to every cycle. That is where electricity multiplies its terrific power to compress matter in order to create the explosives of which this entire universe consists. The wave is repeated in cycles, but each wave cycle is a series of 4 conical pairs. The first essential for you to completely understand is the fact that there is always a hole in all matter, and every part of an electric current, except where collisions occur between pairs to destroy them, by breaking them into spiral ring systems. The other essential fact is that cycles pulse in two-way compression-expansion sequences to live and die. Then they must expand into the four ring formations of their cathoids to again live and die. It is an extremely interesting and very simple process which you must thoroughly know, for there is nothing else beyond it to know. Every action in nature repeats that one formula, from your thinking to your breathing. Because of its great basic import, we will leave no stones unturned to have you comprehend that master key of wave mechanics and space geometry, which could make a new world of science if properly applied, and a new destiny of your own commanding, if you apply it understandingly to every decision which you must make. Helium, for example, is the inert gas record of the carbon octave. If you electrocute carbon by a 1,000,000-volt current, the carbon will return to its cathode birthplace as helium to again become carbon. Likewise, if your body is electrocuted, it will return to its eternal record of you to born a new body of you. There are 9 of these inert gases in nature, as you will see by the 9-stringed harp of the universe. The only difference in their structure is that each consecutive inert gas, from 1 to 9, is smaller than its predecessor, for each octave is a multiplication of its predecessor. Chapter 11 will more fully describe the inert gases as bridges between man and God. The following series of diagrams constitute the entire constructive principle of the electric current as it flows around a wire, not through it, and as it is expressed by waves. One cycle is the same as 1,000,000 cycles, so we will confine our explanation to just one of them. And here is another chart. The mind and motion universe, I'll just leave it there for a little while. Mind centers and controls motion from within. Seek ye the kingdom of heaven within. These examples of tonal rhythms of the electric current. Every cycle of an electric current is a complete octave of 4 pairs and an inert gas keynote. All motion in nature is tonal and rhythmic. Its rhythms are geometrically and mathematically cube-based. The upper diagram, marked AA, represents the creation of an octave of tones, beginning with the inert gas of 4 motionless rings, centered by the stillness of universal energy, to act as cathoids at both ends. This pair of 4 rings divide and extend their pairs in 4 rings toward approaching mates. Electric compression causes the rings to begin to spin, then to become smaller and turn faster as they approach the plane of collision, where all 4 pairs unite to form a sphere. This represents the centripetal half of the journey, which charges, polarizes, heats, and multiplies potential. These are the qualities necessary for increasingly vitalized life. Between the cathoids is the sun of the atom or solar system, thus created by the manifesting energy which has been projected from its cathode source to simulate that energy by motion. The center diagram, marked BB, gives the octave names to the 4 pairs of tones of the carbon octave. The centering sun is marked carbon. Carbon is a united pair. It is a true sphere when hot, a true cube when cold. An equator marks the plane of union of the carbon pair. One hemisphere is on the red side of its wave, and the other hemisphere is on the blue side. The names of the elements are marked under each ring, and their place in the spectrum are marked above them. The lower diagram, marked CC, represents their place in the tonal octave of the musical scale. The inert gas is the key note of the electrical octave, just as the note of C in the musical scale is the key note for that octave. The key note is omnipresent in all of the elements of matter as well as being omnipresent in the musical scale. By omnipresent, we mean that it is in each note as well as its own tone. In music, for example, one is always conscious of the presence of the key note, no matter which one is being sounded, nor how many of them. In matter, the inert gas is not so mind consciously aware of its omnipresence, but the sudden electrocution of any element, by passing a heavy current through it, will release all of the tones except the eternal keynote. By this process, the area of gravity, represented by the hole, is gradually compressed out until the hole is closed up by the united pair, and the very dense hot solid sphere is the product. The life half of the polarized body, which was created by an effort, comes to an end, and the death half, which requires no effort, begins. The reversal for maximum compression to the beginning of expansion, and from heat to cold, and from charge to discharge, and depolarization, is the most confusing of all phenomena in nature to the physicist. It is the one thing all observers have missed. As we have mentioned before, even Einstein missed it in his equation of 1905. For the validity of that equation ends right here, and its reversal, which voids its validity, also begins right here. All observers throughout the centuries have failed to see that one direction of motion has produced a two-way effect, which is as applicable to a mathematical equation as it is to a state of motion. Observe carefully. What now happens? Centripetal force reaches its maximum and begins to die, and centrifugal force takes over. Look again at the top diagram in Figure 42 and carefully note that the four rings of the inert gas are like the four rims of wheels placed within each other with one common hub. Now note that these four rims become the hub when they are compressed and extended. Observe also that the extensions cause the appearance of cones of centripetal force. As centripetal force winds the cone bases into a sun at the apex point of collision. Observe this effect also in Figure 43 and 44. And this is Figure 43. Complete life-death cycle as manifested in the electric current. And here's Figure 44. Now, for the reversal, if you look again at AA in Figure 42, you will note that the center of the inert gas is the point marked 0 in both cathoids. These 2 points now become the apices of cones instead of the center of cone bases. The shaft of gravity which runs through from 0 to 0 now begins to open up at the center of the sun, or earth, or cell of your body, and cause it to expand at its equator and flatten at its poles. Rings are then thrown off from the equator, which are the bases of cones, whose apices are the 0 centers of the cathoid. Now look again at these 0 points in AA Figure 42. Note where we have indicated cone apices there by faint white tones. If you can now imagine yourself opening up that shaft of gravity in the center of any spherical cell, whether sun or carbon atom, so that the center of the sun becomes the center of cone bases, instead of being their apices, you will have begun to comprehend a secret that the world has never yet known about the transition from life to death. Can you not now clearly see how centrifugal force of desire to return to the zero universe of rest is unwinding that which has been compressed out of it, to let it come back into it? Can you not now fully comprehend the loops of force in an electric current or giant nebula, as shown in Figure 43 and 44? If you now study the ring nebula in the heavens, you can see numerous examples of these Dian suns. Many of them are shown in these pages. The Owl Nebula is a very interesting example of an unwinding sun. It has a big hole clear through it. The Ring Nebula of Lyra is also interesting to note because what was left of a sun regenerated at the center to repeat throwing off rings until nothing is left. A complete explanation of this great pulsing movement, which motivates the universe, needs volumes instead of a few pages, but if you will follow carefully what is given herein, you will have the essence of the profound mystery of the life-death movement of creation, which the senses of man have not yet fathomed. To help visualize the process as a whole, however, instead of its parts, we print Figure 45, which shows a whole carbon octave wave, rather than the electric current confined to a wire. The more you study these diagrams, the more you will comprehend them. New thinking is not readily grasped in one reading. Meditation and repeated readings finally reaches your omnipotence, for your mind really knows all things, and needs but to awaken to recollect that which it has always known. If you are not yet aware of this fact, you will be someday, and the more deeply you desire the coming of that glorious day, the more quickly it will come. The most important and direct reason why mankind should comprehend the way the Creator works in this respect is because this book is being written to demonstrate that man cannot violate God's orderly, rhythmic processes of nature without paying a price which is equal in measure to the violation. Atomic fission is a violent abnormalcy for the rhythm of environment necessary for man. This we must show electrically, chemically, and in other ways which man understands by laboratory work, for morals in nature do not have a metaphysical basis, nor even an ethical one. The behavior of all creating things is determined by their source in the zero universe. These are the things which man who believes in free will to do as he chooses must know. For this reason, we must convincingly show him how close to God man is without having known it. That we must do in language and diagram, which are familiar and acceptable to science. And here is another diagram. It's the complete octave of the carbon rings as manifested in the wave. A metaphysical or emotional language used with moral persuasion is a plea to cease this terrific violation would have no effect upon industry, government, or science whose need for a life-saving fuel is great, unless accompanied with scientific conviction that such procedure is in defiance of cosmic law, which will not allow such defiance. This volume is necessarily too brief for expanding detail. Since we must therefore keep to the point at issue, we will save much space by telling you briefly right here what the following pages are to reveal in respect to vital knowledge, which no man on earth today even suspects. And to our knowledge, only one man in all the past ages has fully known and told to a world which crucified him because of it. Bear in mind that we shall not deal in abstractions, nor theories, nor affirmations, even though such affirmations may be admitted truths. The time must eventually come when man must know where God is at every moment in respect to himself. He must completely understand how God controls every action and desire of all living things, from man to fungus cell, or from galaxy to electron, during their entire journeys from their beginning in him to their endings in him. These are the unknown things which unfolding man must know before he can begin to manifest his own divine inheritance as an omnipotent and omnipotent being. The invisible universe is in absolute control of the visible. The invisible universe dominates and controls all motion by magnetic division into cube wave fields of zero curvature, beyond which no moving thing can pass. It can, however, repeat itself in neighboring wave fields, but always in reverse, as mirrors reverse. The geometry of the zero universe is based upon the cube and cube sections. Their planes are of zero curvature, and they reflect their forms in matter in crystal structures, which are the only forms of zero curvature in nature. All motion in all the etheric universe is curved. The curved universe is matured from its base upon the curved universe of matured form is based upon the sphere. The sphere is a compressed cube. The sphere is a series of true circles, no matter where it may be divided into sections by cutting through it in one plane anywhere. All motion is equally compressed in respect to gravity. Therefore, all motion is in true gravity-centered circles, which multiply into spheres, and again divide into true circles. The source of energy, which creates the true circles, is at their very center. The source of all energy is the Creator. All motion of every nature, whether of thought or action, spins in true circular control around the omnipotent Creator of that motion, and in planes of 90 degrees from a shaft of any extension of motion. No man nor creating thing can in the least way become off-center from God, or can his orbit around God be aught at any time than a true circle, even though its seeming orbit is an ellipse. We think of orbits of planets as being elliptical, and so they seem, but such illusions in nature are multitudinous and must be overcome by comprehension. I'm going to end this now. I'm getting to 28 minutes, and it's going to conk out on me anyway, so I will begin again on this page with the next session.